We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey.
Well, Ileana, thank you so much for being here today. I am really excited about our subjects. We were just talking about it, and the biggest thing that we're going to really talk about is women empowerment. And I think that that's really such an important subject, and I love talking about that. And we were just going to kind of get into your journey of healing and learning to love yourself, which is so important. We've got to learn to love ourselves before we can really truly love others. And
I agree.
then in that is the limiting beliefs, the self-criticism, the things that go on in our head. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about. So welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's really nice to be here. I know we planned it some time ago, but we're finally able to make it happen. So
right. And we had a great conversation before, and so I'm looking forward to this one as well.
yeah.
So tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So, well, I may start with saying that the company I run is actually called Empowered Women Now. And we teach women in the workplace how to work with limiting beliefs and really transcend those, because we work with the Jungian psychology and the idea of transcendence and self-actualization, because we believe that every single person has this drive inside of them. But for many women, it has sort of been, if not silenced, but really
suppressed.
The voice, exactly. This voice is very tiny because we're so conditioned to always be giving and be doing for others. And there's huge programming that we're all kind of running up against. And now, of course, men have their own programming as well, as far as competition and having to always be strong and not showing emotion and these kinds of, very unhelpful ideas.
Yeah.
But I find that, because we are living in a world that really is man-run, women often have more things to overcome. They have different things that they've been told in how to behave and how to be in the world, which are often very unhelpful.
Right.
So this is what we work with women to overcome through confidence, setting appropriate boundaries, and then communication. So the three of them kind of work together. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now in the world, because I think so many women have so much potential that they don't even know, they're not aware of, and oftentimes they're kind of suppressing. And just to give you an example, I had a very interesting conversation recently with a woman, kind of around our age, and I was telling her what I do, and she said to me, it's only now that I'm speaking to you that I realize that my whole life I have downplayed my abilities because I didn't want to seem like I was better than my father or my brother. Imagine. And she said, I realize now that this hasn't helped anyone. And just this realization, it was just like the lights went on. And there are so many women who do that on a subconscious level. And if you don't, you're often punished for it by your family or your culture or the environment that you're living in. So it actually takes courage to take this journey.
It really does. It really does. And I know, we can also get accused of being aggressive or assertive if we speak our voice. And, I just discovered my voice about 7 years ago, because mine was suppressed from my childhood abuse. And then in every situation it seemed like I got into in my life, I just followed that same pattern and just took the stance that I needed to be under the radar and be quiet. But boy, was it uncomfortable inside. I cannot even begin to tell you how uncomfortable it was. And when I finally got a voice, it kind of shocked people, I think, but yeah, we need to have a voice.
And then, in the communications course, we talk about the difference between being passive aggressive or aggressive and being assertive. And how does that sound and how does that feel and how does that come across?
I love
Because
that. Can you talk about that? Because that is,
yeah,
there's such a fine line with that.
there is, there
I
is,
love
there
that.
is. So passive aggressive manifests, for example, you're having a difficult conversation with your husband and he says, "What's wrong?" And you say nothing. And he says, "Come on, I know there's something. If you loved me, you would know what would be wrong. I wouldn't have to tell you." This is actually setting someone up for failure and
It
not
really, yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
When someone is asking you to really share, if you can do it in a non-combative way, and so what does that sound like? So, if your husband asks you that question, you say, "Well, I find that when such and such happens, it makes me feel this way. And so if we could somehow work on this, perhaps come to some sort of different conclusion or negotiate about this particular subject, because I really don't like when I feel like this, when our interaction goes down, the piece of me that wants harmony and just joy between us starts to get very hurt. So I'm not feeling happy about that. Can we just openly discuss how we can change how we interact with each other, or how this one thing is done, or the responsibility each one has, whatever the issue is." So you see, there's a big difference here in how it's with respect and compassion and love for each other, because that is very essential to having deep, meaningful conversations. And even at work, even when you're talking to people at work, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just be respectful of each other and understand that every single person is going through their own process and going through their own stuff. You don't know what this person has gone through this morning, or what
Right.
their family life is like, what they're dealing with, right? So,
True.
we always look at things from our own perspective, but if we
Mm-hmm.
could that a little bit and just aggressiveness, all it does is puts people on the defense.
Yeah. Yep.
So whatever message you're trying to get across, if you're going to be aggressive, they're going to shut you down. They're not going to hear anything anymore. And then it just spirals downward into a place where nobody can really save it anymore. So that's the big difference between having, being able to speak clearly and assertively in non-blaming language,
Mm-hmm.
and taking also responsibility for your own actions, and just knowing what it is that you want. This is the other thing, Lisa. A lot of people can't even say what it is that they want, what it is that they're looking
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
right? Having that self-awareness and saying, I'd like to spend more time with you. So for me, that looks like, 3 times a week we do something, or we have a date night every week so that we can step away from the responsibilities. So, make suggestions, be open to other ideas. Don't shut down, don't shut your heart. These are all kind of like the things that we teach, so that, and it's for you too. It's not just for the other person, right?
Right. And what you're describing too is very vulnerable.
Exactly.
Is very vulnerable to really speak. And, I'll say, yeah, I can remember with my first husband that, there was a lot of passive aggressive, that kind of description you had. And I just remember thinking, well, you can't tell him what the truth is. I can't be that vulnerable. Like, I realize that, right? But when I went through a lot of my healing journey over the last 10 years, that is something that's really healed in me, is the shame, the shame that was put upon me,
Yeah.
and that vulnerability. And I'm telling you, it's scary when you first do it. It's scary because and you're putting yourself out there and you don't know how they're going to respond. But I think you are going to be surprised at how the response is going to be, and it's going to be a positive one. Because unless you're dealing with somebody who's just a really awful person, when someone sees you vulnerable, that softens their heart.
Yes. So as you said, just, to be careful, because a lot of women who are very open and soft-hearted end up with narcissists.
Yes,
This is a very unfortunate pattern. And so, again, understanding how you should be treated so that you can see the red flags
correct.
when they go up. So this is also important. But you're absolutely right. The only way to be authentic is to be vulnerable. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually wrote an article that was published about the value of authenticity and vulnerability, and how the only way true communication happens is in that way. Because as you said, I can't say that, you know, so then it's not authentic, it's not real. And then we're just putting up defenses and we're armoring ourselves up. So that will never get us anywhere. And I'm sure you know this from experience, which I've also learned exactly. I had a very vulnerable, and it took me a long time to sort through that and to understand that being vulnerable is just being my real authentic self.
Right. And that's okay. And I have found that that is the cure to shame.
Yeah.
It really is. And, you know, you do need to make sure you're in a safe space because, you know, back in the day, I was that person that would just blah, 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 and be surprised at how many people, you know, hurt me. But I was setting myself up for that, not realizing it. And so, yes, you do need to be in a safe place. And doing this podcast, I am very vulnerable all the time. I put it out there. And it actually, sometimes it blows my mind, the things that I actually say about myself. But I just, what I have in mind is, you know what? I had so much shame back then. I didn't talk about anything. Like I was so closed up and it wasn't to hurt anybody else. It was completely to protect myself. And now it's like, I want that out there because I don't want anybody else carrying that burden within themselves that they have to hold this stuff inside and carry this shame and not be vulnerable, not have beautiful, authentic relationships.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the things I would also say, you know, we all use social media a great deal and we're on there a lot. Again, oversharing is also something in a medium like that is also something that opens you up to attack. And you know, if you're sensitive and vulnerable, it can shut you down further. So just be careful who you share things with. And if you do share in a podcast in this way, understand that sometimes there are people who thrive on being trolls and making nasty comments
Drama.
just because they can, and they can hide behind a handle that doesn't mean anything to anybody. So, you know, being aware of all these dynamics in our culture, it's really important to navigating the complex life that we have these days, which, you know, prior generations didn't have to deal with. I mean, you know, prior generations lived in a tiny village, and sure, everybody knew everything in that village, but you weren't exposed to the world. So very different, especially as we're talking about women's empowerment. It's a very different kind of world that we live in. And also being aware that some men do feel vulnerable and emasculated and afraid of the whole idea of women being empowered. So I've ran across this sometimes when I talk to people, and it always startles me because it's not about one being greater than the other or anything like that. It's just an equal place at the table of life.
Right.
And equal partnership in everything, having equal rights, having our voice heard in exactly the same, you know, with the same weight to it as a man's voice. And becoming aware of these inherent biases that so many people have against when a woman speaks as opposed to when a man speaks. I think this is definitely changing, but we're still, you know, there's still some work in progress. And I want to encourage men to really look at it a little bit differently and not be frightened by the idea of, you know, if a woman is powerful, then that means the man is subordinate. It really has nothing to do with that at all.
No, and I really believe that men have gifts, women have gifts, they're different, and we come together and we're a powerhouse.
Exactly. Complementary.
Absolutely. We come together and we help each other and we support each other, and it's a beautiful thing. But we also, and I'm going to touch on this, and I might not be a great subject, but you know, I have also seen where there's women who are in power who are abusing that power and are not setting a good example. They're kind of going down the same road as old school.
Yes, yes. And I have also seen that too, especially in the workplace. And unfortunately, that's due to erroneous beliefs around lack, you know? And also this buying into the idea that for me to succeed at work, I have to behave like a man. You know, and I have to, you know, I can't care about other people. I just have to forge my way to the top, even if that's on top of other people. These are ideas that are, first of all, outdated. Second of all, they will isolate you and alienate you because empathy has been shown to be a really huge leadership quality now.
Mm-hmm.
It's traditionally considered to be a feminine quality. So this makes a really huge difference now. If you can look at your role, especially if you're in a senior position as a woman, and you see the other women who are just starting in their careers, you know, mentorship is a huge thing. And
Yeah.
so helpful because it creates an atmosphere and an ambience in a workplace of collaboration and community as opposed to, you know, dog eat dog.
You're right.
And
The competitiveness.
where do we want to work? What kind of environment do we all want to work in?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's something that is, you know, so much healthier if it's a collaboration as opposed to, I had to fight my way tooth and nail to get up here, and I'm going to let you do the same, and I'm not going to help you even though I can. As you said, I think
Yeah.
that's very detrimental to everyone really involved, and it's too bad that some women see it like that. But I think those kind of ideas are also starting to leave a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing something else emerge now. I'm seeing women understanding that, you know, supporting each other is just part of the journey that we all have, especially as women, to get out from this oppression that we've had for so many centuries.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that's been on my heart for years is women uniting instead of fighting, you know,
Exactly.
instead of being like housewives of Orange County. I mean, I literally tried to watch that, I'll admit. And it was for work, but I couldn't watch it. I literally would get not even by the end of the show, 5 minutes into the show, I'm angry. And I'm screaming at the TV, like, why are you women treating each other like I don't get it, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much of that, and it's so promoted. And
No, competition. We are taught to compete with
yeah,
each other.
and
Young.
we have to cut the other down and hurt the
Right.
other to raise
Right.
ourselves up.
Right.
And you know, and I was never quite like that because I'm not competitive outward. I'm competitive within myself. So I was never like that extreme. But just when I have the women in my life that I have in my life now, like we support each other, we encourage each other. We're excited when somebody else, you know, I don't get jealous of them at all.
Me too. I'm the
It's
same.
so,
Yeah.
there's no jealousy at all. I am excited for them. And I'm telling you, that is such a different feeling than before. Like, even though
So
I wasn't,
freeing, isn't it?
it's so liberating. You
Yeah.
know, it's the thing where I wasn't competitive with them, but I would be jealous and it would eat me up and it
Yeah.
would make me be really hard on myself. And now I'm like, no, that's awesome. You're in your gift and I love seeing you succeed. This is exciting. You're going to be able to help many other people. So
Yeah.
it is a very different mindset.
Yeah. I totally agree. And, you know, we actually talk about this in our program. So we talk about this whole comparisоnism,
Mm-hmm.
and along with that comes perfectionism.
Right.
So these are almost like two sides of the same coin. And, you know, one of the things I say, it's like there are so many beautiful flowers in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We don't compare them because they're all beautiful in their own
Right.
way.
We appreciate all of them.
Exactly. If you can think of yourself and other women in your life in the same way, you're not going to feel the desire to compete with anyone, and you're not going to be so hard on yourself because perfectionism really is a very you know, and having this really loud and nasty inner critic
Yeah.
is just so unhelpful because it really stops us from making our voice heard, from contributing, and for really feeling that we are worth something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because this voice it really says very terrible things to us, like, you know, you're not enough. Why would anybody want to listen to you? Of course, everybody already knows this. Just be, like you said, just be quiet and play small.
Yeah.
Exactly. We need to do the opposite. So once we start to see ourselves in this different light about how far can I go to do my personal best, because that's what it's about, right? It's about
Mm-hmm.
personal best, like you said. It's about working through some of the issues that may be holding us back without comparing ourselves to others. I know incredibly accomplished women who, even if another woman gets an award or something else, they feel they haven't done enough, even though they have done an enormous amount.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is, we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to get every single award. We're never going to be number one at everything because somebody else will be, and it's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, personal best and having this self-actualization as the goal is a whole different dynamic and feeling than constantly feeling like you're not enough and this person is better than you and what can I get to, what can I do to be better than her? This is very unhelpful and really outdated kind of thinking. It's just like for women especially, it keeps us down thinking about these silly things instead of rising to shine our light really brightly, which is what we need at this point.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, back in the day when I was in that place of being jealous and everything, I didn't know what I wanted.
Right.
I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what my passion was. I didn't know me. I really did not know me. And once I joined that journey of discovering me and really going into the deep healing and recognizing my passions. And it became very clear to me when I started to seek them out where they were. It became very uncomfortable when I was outside of my passion. And it was very comfortable when I was in my passion. And it means that things just come very natural to me. And it's then that I really, and I don't know what clicked, but that's really what made me start really appreciating other people as well, appreciating their gifts and being that supportive friend and encouraging them.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah. And I was just thinking about that when we were talking about that, because like what switched in me?
Yeah.
And I just remember the day that this all hit, and it was the day after my son got married. And I don't know why it hit me then, but my
Yeah.
now husband knew it was coming and was prepared for it. And I just like, I don't, he, I remember walking in my house and just started crying and I didn't know what was going on. And then my phone rings and he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Okay, that's really weird." No. And and he came over and we just laid on the bed and it was like, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what I like. He said, "Let's join that journey." And that's where we've been.
Self-awareness really is the key to open the door to so many of these things.
Yes.
This is foundational to our first course, which is confidence. You need to know who you are, what your passions are, what your abilities are, what your gifts are, and really work with those. Like lead with that, lead with your strengths, because we all have weaknesses, but really work with your weaknesses judiciously. As opposed to focusing on that and spending all of your time and energy shifting those. Now, depending on how important they are to your entire life, there might be some things that need work. So, for example, when I was starting my first business 20 years ago, and I give this example when I'm doing the training, I wanted to promote my business through speaking. And I did it through writing, but I wanted to speak. Well, I was terrified of speaking, like most people, right?
Yes.
I nervous and I was pacing and I didn't know how to breathe and I was so afraid of being judged. I mean, it was a big problem, right? So this was a weakness that I knew I had to work on. So I hired a voice and presentation coach and we did work together. And so that shifted, it shifted my business, it shifted how I looked at myself. And how, I mean, I could have never done this kind of podcast before because I was so nervous. But now it's a completely different thing. So this was the weakness that was worth investing and shifting because it had such a big impact on my life. So
Yeah.
again, it's being aware. What do I need? Where are the areas that I need to work on? But what are my strengths and how can I bring those out even more? Because if we lead with our strengths, as you said, it's naturally a comfort place and we lead in a different way from that spot. So being aware, being self-aware, and constantly, doing this self-examination, right? Really, really crucial. Yeah, for self-growth.
Yeah. And a lot of it can be done through journaling, really,
Absolutely.
because at first, I mean, when I first started trying to figure it out, like nothing was coming to me. There was just blank. And then the first thing that kind of hit me was at the time I was working with this coach. And he said this really wise thing to me. He said, "Lisa, it's time to start looking at things in color. You're looking at everything black and white." And what he also didn't know is I looked at a lot of the gray area too, but I never, and it was just, that was impactful to me. So there was something to that.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started exploring that. And it was figuratively and literally, like I add color to everything I do now. It's so crazy. But
We're both
yeah.
doing blue.
Yeah, we're doing blue. We're not, we're
Shades of
doing some
blue.
color. Yeah, I mean, and when I started the podcast, I thought, oh, I should wear, black. And then I'm like, wait a minute. No, 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 no. Let's bring
Yes.
some color and some light into this because it doesn't all
Look,
have to be, yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be dreary. So, I would suggest for people, and maybe you have other ideas as well, is, just really, it's uncomfortable at first to just sit and spend some time with yourself and just
absolutely. And
ask yourself.
first of all, allow yourself the time.
Correct.
I mean, we have such busy lives, especially women who have children, who have jobs. There might be elderly parents. I mean, so many things we have to juggle. And so the last thing we take care of is ourselves, isn't it?
If there's anything left, right?
Exactly. So many women go to bed exhausted and they have never spent any time for themselves. And this is really self-care. And nobody teaches us that. Nobody talks about that. I mean, who at home gets taught by their parents to self-care? Nobody.
No.
I mean, it's the opposite. So, having this time for yourself, like maybe half an hour every day, if you can set that time aside, absolutely. And just, being quiet, meditation, of course, also helps.
Yes.
And as you said, journaling is a huge way to really find out what is going on, and just write without censoring.
Right,
Just
exactly.
stream of consciousness, what comes out. So a useful exercise I've done when I've had a lot of voices in my head that were fighting for attention, that were fearful, that were despairing, is I just sat at my computer and I typed everything out because I type faster than I write.
That's what I do.
Right? And just got everything out. Every single voice was put down there. Everything, 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 everything. And what I noticed was that after that, there was silence.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
There wasn't all that chatter going on.
Right? Because these voices just needed to be seen, to be heard, to be acknowledged. And then we just move on. So these are very good ways and very simple ways of starting to figure out what happens. And when you journal and you look through your day, you can also find out what brings you joy.
Yeah, pay attention to that.
Yeah, because if we don't know what brings us joy, how do we know kind of like what to move towards?
Correct.
Otherwise, we're just running programs and we're living in this robotic state. And that's exactly what we need to come out of. We need to become self-aware individuals and understanding, where did this come from? I just said something and I don't know where this came from. Let me start examining that and becoming used to self-examination and seeing what comes out, right? Exactly. What exactly do I believe about myself? Do I really believe I'm not good enough? Do I really believe I'm never going to succeed because I've made some mistakes in the past? So I've made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's reframing, and it's how you look at your life that makes an enormous difference. Mindset, right?
Right, right. I mean, it's even changing the mindset of looking at things instead of looking for the negative, looking for the positive. And one of the best ways I found that can put you in that place is really having a heart of gratitude. And even if when you wake up in the morning, even if you're like thankful that you woke up in a comfortable bed in a safe place. I mean, there are so many things that we can be thankful for. And I can remember back in the day when I couldn't see anything, it was really hard at first, but it did start with, I woke up this morning. I'm in, I have a home, I can go and brush my teeth. And, it started that simple. And you are in such a different state when you have a mindset of gratitude. It really opens up the world. You see things very differently.
I totally agree. I wrote a blog post in my other website that was talking about starting a gratitude journal during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I really struggled with being, isolated and living alone. And it was really difficult to get through. And I found when I started this gratitude journal, it really changed so many things for me. And, this is a practice we can have every day. I mean, if you have children, just be grateful that you have these wonderful children, right? And as you said, a home and being in a safe place, that you're not in a war-torn country and that you have food on the table. I mean, there's so many things we just take for granted. And we focus on what we don't have.
Yes. And that's exactly what you're going to see. What you focus on is what you're going to see. I guarantee it.
Yeah,
If
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
the more you, I mean, for me, even being able to walk without pain now, because I have had 2 back surgeries,
Oof.
and I'm young, I mean, really, and I have grandchildren to chase around, and so every day I am thankful for that I can walk around now. I can do things that I couldn't do before. I'm now able to go to the gym again. And, so it really puts you in a clear state to see things very differently. And your energy is very different too.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think you'll find that if you're miserable all the time, people are just going to avoid you.
Yeah, they
Where,
can feel it.
right? If you have the opposite perspective, you're just going to attract people to because everybody naturally gravitates to someone who's more positive
Mhm.
and who's able to look and be grateful because they also inspire others to the same thing. So it's not even what we do and what we say, but it's who we are that affects other people and we don't even realize it. It's just how we are. So that's something else that people have to become aware of, that their very being affects others through the energy that they give off. You
Mhm.
walk into a room and there's 2 people and you can feel sometimes there's tension that you could cut with a knife.
Yeah.
That's because people's energies can be felt by others. It's inevitable. So
Yeah.
what kind of energy do you want to put out into your family, right? To your coworkers, to your spouse, to yourself?
That reminds me, this is a kind of an embarrassing story, but it really opened my eyes to my energy and how my energy can come across. So this was several years ago. I came home and we had a flood in our house. Like literally there was water coming out down the driveway. And it was just, you could imagine wood floors. It
I've
was
been
just,
through that.
oh my
I've been
goodness.
through that. Yep.
And I had such a bad day that day, and I was so looking forward to a quiet weekend. Right. So
Yeah.
I just remember, oh my gosh. So I had to run to the store and get some stuff, I remember. And I was just in this absolute frantic mindset. And I grabbed a cart and I was heading off to this one aisle. And I just remember just being so focused on this thing. And this lady in front of me, I felt so bad for her. She turned around, she looked at me, she goes, whoa. And she got out of my way. The look on her face, it took me back. Like I
Yeah.
felt horrible. I was so completely unaware of my behavior. And I
Exactly.
just stopped and
We're
I said,
putting out.
I'm so sorry. I said, I'm not even going to waste your time on what is going on. I'm so sorry. Thank you. And then I calmed myself down.
Yeah.
But my energy, I mean, it was even when I think about that now, it gives me the chills. I'm not proud of that.
And I mean, these are circumstances that happen, and the shock
Yeah.
sometimes puts us in this. But again, that self-awareness is what we need to cultivate so that we pull ourselves back. We go, whoa, 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 just, calm down.
Dial
You're
it
still
back.
safe. You're still alive. You're still okay.
Right.
The problem you need to deal with, but and also I think when you're in that really negative energy and so like this, you actually constrict yourself from having better ideas and
Oh,
looking at
yeah.
different solutions, right? Because you're just like in this survival mode,
Yeah.
which is very unhelpful. Yeah.
And what it was a full on trigger. I
Yeah.
was full on, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was probably in one of the worst triggers because the message that was going through my head that scared me so bad is I'm going to lose my home.
Wow. Yeah.
That's where I went. And so
Yeah.
I was just in absolute panic mode. When I even talk about it, I can get those emotions come up and it's like, wow, that was but it was an eye opener. And it was really the first time that I really could see how my negative energy, because I've seen my positive energy, but
Yeah.
how powerful the negative energy is and how it affects someone who's walking in front of me in Target.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah. We're
So,
actually very powerful beings. We just don't know it.
right, right. Yeah. And when you become self-aware of it. And so that will never happen again. I can guarantee you that. I will
Yeah.
never put someone through that again. That will never happen again. It was just, it was a game changer for me. So,
And becoming aware of our triggers is part of how we heal,
mhm,
right?
correct. And it's empowering. And I've talked about it, several times now, but I had a trigger a few months ago but it was from the beginning to end. And I was completely in it and completely aware and completely managed it
Mhm.
in a beautiful way. to where I can share with others. And I actually ended up having a really great PhD trauma researcher on, and we talked about that, and it had just happened. And she had done a really great article on it, but it was really empowering because I literally was completely self-aware from the very beginning to the very end. And I had that pause in between,
Mhm.
and I had a safe place that I could say my crazy stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But then went, okay, we're not doing crazy. We're going to do healthy. We're not doing self-sabotage. We're going to do something healthy. And it's
And you
really
thought
empowering.
instead of reacting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, of course, what we look towards when we're trying to heal certain trauma, or we're in this addictive type of behavior or obsessive compulsive behavior. When we're not self-aware is when we just react.
Yeah.
And typically we react in ways that are not helpful to ourselves or other people. And then we beat ourselves up, and this whole cycle, right, of shame and guilt and all of that
Oh, it's a
starts.
cycle.
Whereas if we step back, as you said, that little pause, and we choose our reaction, then we're aware and we can change the outcome of the event. So
Yeah.
it doesn't, right?
Yeah. Because when you're in your trigger and you're not aware, you don't see any other option except that one. And it's usually, I usually say it's usually self-sabotaging. It's usually something that's going to not be good for you or anybody else,
Exactly.
and you just
You
don't
get this
see
tunnel
anything.
vision, right?
Yeah. That's all you see. That's all you see in front of you. And when you have the self-awareness to recognize that it's a trigger, and I even figured out why I was triggered. So I even figured it out. It was the whole scenario, and it was really empowering. And I still get triggered, but I'm much more aware of it, and I don't react anymore.
Yeah, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
So you've learned a lot from this. Yeah.
Ton. So this has
Yeah.
been great. This has been great. What would you like to leave our audience with?
I think that it's really important to remember that there's a reason why each one of us goes through certain things. And often it's because we need to get to a place, as we were talking at the very beginning, about self-love. So this is something that a lot of people still don't understand what it means, especially women. And they really struggle with the idea, because there's the whole idea of sacrificing yourself, especially as a mom, and taking care of other people all the time. And what this whole idea of self-love talks about is that you have to fill your own cup first,
Yes.
so that you can be there for others. When we're on a plane and they tell us about, the oxygen mask coming down, they tell you to put it on yourself first, and then to put it on someone else to help them. Because if you don't feed yourself, if you don't help yourself, if you don't love yourself, you're going to eventually burn out, run on empty, be resentful, be angry, just be miserable. And that's not going to help anybody. So it's really important to learn what self-love means for you. And for each of us, it might be different. For some people who are, like we said, so super busy, just half an hour for themselves, just to have that, and make it really important to you, make it a priority. But just having that half hour to yourself is the way that you offer yourself love.
And you may
So
need to get up a little bit earlier, right?
exactly.
To have that half hour to yourself.
Exactly. So whatever that entails, however it works in your particular life, but making sure that you give yourself that time, because that really helps you work with your entire persona, not just your physical body. It helps you work with your spirit and your soul, and also doing these practices we talked about, being grateful, and journaling to find out who you are. And the other thing I would add is having a circle of
Yes.
friends who support you, who love you, who are not competing with you, who are there to cheer you on, who are there to help you with advice, and just being there for you when you're having hard times is hugely empowering, hugely.
Yeah. It's
Because
always good to have the healthy, loving people around you and give you a different perspective sometimes that you can't see.
even if you're married, even if you have a family, girlfriends are always really, really
Oh,
important,
yeah. Oh,
because you
yeah.
don't know what happens in life. And
Yeah.
so to have that support network is really, really important. And, take every opportunity to kind of find out who am I? What is it that I need? What is my joy in life? And work with that,
Mm-hmm.
like live that, embody that, because that's why we're here. I mean, not to be miserable all the time and to just have responsibilities and to just work hard. I mean, there has to be joy too, right? I mean, and that should be part of our daily life.
Yes. Yeah, we should have more joy in our life than sadness. Yeah, for sure. And you
And
can
the
get
only
there.
way is to know who you are and what it is that brings that joy to you.
Right,
As you
right.
said
Learn.
before, if you're not self-aware, you're not really sure. You're just kind of like reacting to things as opposed to intentionally seeking particular things that are helpful to you.
Oh, yeah. And I even went so far as to, I like the things that people told me I needed to like. I
People
even went
please
that far.
all the time with women, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Because I got to have all these people in my life. I can't be
And
alone.
there's this fear of being who you really are. Well, what if this person doesn't like this? And
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that because what if, so this is when we're not authentic. This is not when we're moving in flow. This is not when we're actually shining our light the brightest. This is when we're holding ourselves back. And many people don't understand that part of this journey is to really be who you truly are and
Mm-hmm.
stop being so worried about what other people are going to think and
And
just
you,
be your authentic self. Yeah,
and you do have gifts and you do have things to offer
absolutely.
people.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You have value, and
Absolutely.
if you're not being valued, if you're not being valued, you're not in the right group.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful. So if our audience wanted to reach out to you, of course, we'll have all this on YouTube as well, but how could they reach out to you?
So our website is www.empoweredwomennow.com. And my email is hello@empoweredwomennow.com. Those are the two best places.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This has been really good, talking a lot about self-care, self-love, and, being truly what an empowered woman is. And I'm all over, I love that word. I love empowerment.
Me too. We can change the world that way, I think, to be a better place. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for being
Thank you so
here.
much, Lisa. It was my pleasure. Thank you.